Adjustment layers. Well, actually, adjustment clips was one of the new features added in the Final Cut Pro 11.1 update, and while it's nothing new to most people, it's never been a native feature of Final Cut Pro. See, up until the 11.1 update, most of us used third-party adjustment layers that came as title presets, and I myself use these all the time. Now, we finally have this as a native feature in Final Cut Pro, but are they any different or better in any way than what we had before? They're a little bit better. First of all, what is an adjustment layer or an adjustment clip? An adjustment clip is a transparent overlay you add over your timeline used to apply effects or adjustments to multiple clips at the same time. Any effects or adjustments applied to the adjustment clip are applied to every clip below it in the timeline. For example, if we add an adjustment clip over our 3 clips we have in our timeline and add an effect to the adjustment clip, let's use the black and white effect for example, that effect is applied to all clips below the adjustment clip. This can be a huge time saver, especially now that it's a native feature of Final Cut Pro. So, how are adjustment clips better than adjustment layers we all used before? Well, first of all, now that it's a native feature of Final Cut Pro, there's no longer a need to download or install anything. Everyone that has Final Cut Pro 11.1 or later now has access to adjustment clips. This is nice if you share your Final Cut Pro library with others, or you just move it around between 2 different computers like I do. With adjustment layers, unless you have the exact same one installed on all your computers, sending a library to a different machine that doesn't have that exact adjustment layer would give you a missing title screen. With adjustment clips, everyone has the same one, so no more missing titles. Adjustment clips also come with their own role, and it has its own color, making it easier to find. So if you have multiple title presets in your timeline, these adjustment clips, because they're a different color, now stand out. It's a minor detail, but can be really useful at times. Another reason adjustment clips are better than adjustment layers is the way you add them to your timeline. Before, if you wanted to add an adjustment layer to your timeline, you had to go to your title inspector, look for your adjustment layer, and then add it to your timeline. This can be done much quicker now. To add an adjustment clip to your timeline, all you have to do is press Option A. Because it's a native feature of Final Cut Pro, an adjustment clip now has a keyboard shortcut. One thing to keep in mind though, and this happened to me, is if you customized your keyboard shortcuts, you have to manually add it to your custom command set. Any new feature added to Final Cut Pro that has a keyboard shortcut is automatically added to the default command set, but if you have a custom set of keyboard shortcuts, this has to be done manually. Go up to the menu bar and click on Final Cut Pro, Command Sets, and Customize. Make sure the command set you use is selected, and in the search bar, search for adjustment clip. Select it in your commands window, and press Option A to assign this keyboard shortcut to add adjustment clip. It doesn't have to be Option A, but it does make sense. Click Save and close this window. And the last reason adjustment clips are better than adjustment layers is if you need to add an adjustment clip to add an effect to your timeline, you no longer need to add the adjustment clip first. Let me show you. With adjustment layers, if I wanted to add an effect to my timeline as an adjustment layer, I would have to find and add an adjustment layer, then go to my effects browser and add my effect to the adjustment layer. With adjustment clips, all you have to do is go to your effects browser, select your effect, and press Option A to add that effect as an adjustment clip to your timeline. And the nice thing about it is it renames the adjustment clip with the effect name. So, as you can see, there's nothing huge here, but adjustment clips are a little bit better. Now, let me show you a few ways I use adjustment clips in my projects. Number 1, and this is probably the most common use for adjustment clips, is adding an overall look to your project. So, instead of applying effects or adjustments individually to each clip, we can add an adjustment clip over our entire project and apply the effect to that clip to add it to our entire project. Press Shift-Z to fit your entire project in the timeline window, or to switch to the Range Selection tool, and click and drag out a range in your timeline to select the entire project. Press Option A to add an adjustment clip covering the range you selected. You don't need to do it this way, but I find this easier than just adding an adjustment clip and ripple trimming it out to cover the entire project. Next, go to your effects browser and select an effect you want to add to your project. I'm going to add the custom LUT effect to mine and add a creative LUT. Because my adjustment clip covers my entire project, the LUT I selected is applied to every clip in my timeline. This can also be used for built-in effects. I can go to my inspector window and apply a crop to the top and bottom of my adjustment clip to add a letterbox effect to my timeline. And since I'm cropping the adjustment clip and not the actual clips in my timeline, if I need to, I can adjust the position of my individual clips to make sure nothing important is cut off. This alone makes adjustment clips an essential tool, but there's so much more you can do with them. When making these tutorial videos, for example, I often like to zoom in on my screen so you get a better view of what's going on. Personally, I use add motion for this, but this would also apply to zooming in with a transform tool. My problem is the clips in my timeline are all cut up. If I add a zoom to this clip, I'd also have to add it to the next one, the one after that, and so on. An easier way to do this is with an adjustment clip. I can just add it above my timeline and add the zoom effect to the adjustment clip. Since this affects every clip under it, I can just stretch it out over my timeline, and the framing is adjusted in every clip under my adjustment clip. Another use for adjustment clips I use over and over is to hide jump cuts. See, when you have a jump cut in your timeline, the oldest trick in the book is to zoom in on one of your clips to make it look like you switch camera angles. But when you do this, one important thing to remember is to keep it looking natural, you need to keep your eye line consistent. Instead of zooming in on the clip itself, I like to add an adjustment clip and make the adjustments on the adjustment clip. First, I'll use my adjustable guides from my Final Cut Pro Essentials toolkit and mark where my eyes are in my frame. I'll then select my adjustment clip, zoom in on it, usually about 20 to 30%, and adjust the framing to match up my eye line. There's a couple of advantages to this. One is if I have more clips after my adjustment clip that I want to keep the same size, instead of making all the same adjustments to them, I can just stretch out my adjustment clip over them. Since the transform parameter changes were applied to the adjustment clip, they transfer over to every clip under it, so my framing remains the same. And two, if later on in my project I need to hide another jump cut, I can just go back to the adjustment clip, copy it, and paste it over that jump cut. If you have lots of jump cuts, this can save you a ton of time. And last, if you have a composition with multiple elements in it and you need to add an effect to all of them, an adjustment clip will be a perfect tool for this job. A simple example of this is a split screen composition with maybe a title somewhere in there. If we wanted to add an effect to this composition, maybe a little bit of film grain, instead of adding it to every clip and try and match them all to look cohesive, we can just add an adjustment clip and only have to add an adjuster film grain effect once. This was just a few examples of how useful adjustment clips are. And now that it's a native feature in Final Cut Pro, using adjustment layers, or as Apple calls them, adjustment clips, is easier than ever. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.